Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the Prime Minister's speech today when he spoke about, of course, he highlighted the situation as far as Pakistan is concerned, our economic challenges, but he also talked about Gaza. He talked about our sympathies, our efforts, of course, to try our best to highlight what's happening to the Muslims in Gaza. The plight of the Muslims in Kashmir, the genocide that is happening in Gaza and of course Kashmir also. He also talked about, of course, as far as overall situation is concerned with regard to Pakistan and the efforts that have been made by this government to ensure that Pakistan doesn't default. He also talked about, of course, the sacrifices, the efforts, the hard decisions that invariably have been made for Pakistan and are, of course, sacrifice that perhaps the better strata of society will have to make for Pakistan. He also talked about the economic turmoil and our relationship and with Saudi Arabia and China and its, of course, our continuing liaison with them on economy and of course our MOUs as far as the pledge of $10 billion from the UAE is concerned, inflation having been reduced from 38 to 12%, some of the things he highlighted when he spoke today. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this speech as the Prime Minister spoke, and also we'll be talking about how it relates to the budget and of course the economic situation at this time and the efforts that the government is continuing to make to ensure that Pakistan remains on the path to recovery and we can stand on our own feet with regard to as economy, investment in terms of doing our best in those as far as Pakistan as a whole is concerned. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Naveed Aman, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for being with us today. We also have Muneeb Qadir, who's a political analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Faraz Ali Khan, who's a political analyst. Thank you for being with us. And Wajih Abbasi, who is a political analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Naveed sir, overall, as far as the situation at this time, you heard what the Prime Minister had to say. What is your overall take on the speech when he addressed, I think it's his first address after, and how do you look at it?
Mahrukh, after taking oath and taking control of the government, it was his first speech. And after almost 3 months, it was, the story of the 3 months, what he has been doing for the country and the nation during the last 3 months. I think his last 3 months have been very hectic. He has been running around and, flying to Saudi, to China, many other places, just for the economic recovery of Pakistan, and just to cement those level of diplomatic relationships with the other countries, which Pakistan have been suffering for. I think it was a very successful 3 months effort made by the Prime Minister and his cabinet, and it was an effort to just make the public or the masses realize that what he has been doing should come in front of the masses, and they should come to know. And after having focused on budget and the other matters, he also focused on Gaza and Kashmir and the other international issues as well. So it was like an address of an international stature leader. So focusing at this stage when he has just stepped in the government, and he has been facing multiple issues like economic issues and the political matters and the diplomatic issues as well. But overall, his input have been excellent.
Right, fair enough. Let me go to Muneeb. Muneeb, can you hear me? I think maybe unmute yourself. Gee, I can hear you now. Muneeb, overall, this address by the Prime Minister, of course, he talked, his focus, of course, has been redressal as far as, going back to investment, trying to ensure that we can somehow bring back something for Pakistan. And of course, the focus also has been that, basically. But as far as overall the address is concerned, you heard what Naveed Saab here had to say. Do you think it's also a time when the focus is so centrally on economy as far as the government is concerned, yet there's also other parties that we've seen the reaction of. How do you look at that particularly?
So during the session 2 days ago when the budget plan was announced, as far as the opposition parties are concerned, rather than contributing constructively to, either propose amendments to the budget plan or give the input into the budget plan, which needs to be finalized by 24th June. They were chanting slogans again, the same old thieves narratives, not seeing now the political parties and their representatives sitting on the treasury benches as equal participants in the democratic process. We could see that, street, and I'm sorry to say, it sounds like a very harsh word, but hooliganism that was being resorted to by those in the opposition. We were seeing that happening in the National Assembly, so much so that, the Prime Minister needed to be shielded from members of his own political party. And this is not healthy for a constructive criticism or a constructive input. I think more constructive was the reaction of People's Party, which initially had announced that they would boycott the budget plan, and then eventually they were brought onto some reconciliatory tone with the government by by Deputy PM Ishaq Dar's efforts. So I think that this is the time when those in the treasury benches as well as those in the opposition benches, they need to collectively work in coming up with a budget plan which works for everyone, because there are a lot of people who are endorsing this budget plan, but there are also a lot of critics. And when I say there are a lot of critics, many people are worried that the budget plan proposed by PMLN, which PM Shahbaz Sharif was just trying to explain in his speech, burdens those who are already within the tax net and does not nearly do enough to bring more people into the tax net. So it just feels a bit too penalizing. It feels a bit too punitive towards those who are already salaried individuals, who are already registered documented businesses. And there's a fear that underground undocumented businesses might not spring up so as to evade taxes. These kinds of concerns are what need to be talked about, but unfortunately the opposition are just throwing away one-liners and slogans to gain political mileage.
Let me include Wajih Saab in this also. Wajih Saab, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You heard what Muneeb is saying. There is a constructive criticism, there is criticism for the sake of criticism, and there is, a lot of ruckus for the sake of ruckus. Do you think, which was it, in your opinion, as far as the opposition is concerned? Of course, PPP also is, we know that they are a part of government, but they're not really, we know the situation, they haven't taken the ministries, the criticism was there from the PPP also. And do you think it's going to be one of those things that where, there's also talks already underway? You think that there's a chance that some of the, measures or some of the, those taxes may be done away with after this consultation? No, I don't think I can hear you. I can't hear. Ji. Naveed sir, you think that they can, maybe they will do away with some of the taxes, because, there is this consultative process which is underway with regard to the PPP and the PMLN, and PPP also has just sort of agreed, but not really, they were going to boycott, and then we saw Dar Saab's intervention, and then they decided to, and then we also seen talks progressing. And we've also had the representative PPP say that it's too early and one meeting cannot resolve this. So you think that there's a chance that there may be some sort of middle ground here?
Definitely the issue will be resolved amicably. But it is politics, and the People's Party in a position to play politics with the government, the Prime Minister or PMLN, and also playing that role of opposition at the same time. So they're enjoying both ends. To gain more political gains, they are pressurizing the government for the sake of that gain, which is hidden agenda, political agenda. So they want more space in Punjab in the name of that, budgetary matters. In fact, matter is that space which is in their mind in Punjab, and in Punjab, PMLN is in majority, and People's Party a very, very small space in different constituencies. So if they want to have that space in Punjab, they will have within those constituencies which they represent in Punjab Assembly or in National Assembly. More than this, they cannot. Number two is CM Punjab has categorically said that there will be no political intervention in the appointments and postings or of the officers in different districts. So no political pressure can be beared or generated by any political party, in particular People's Party. So People's Party wants those appointments in their districts where their MPs or MNAs have won the seats, which is, I think, in this case, CM Punjab's decision is on merit.
Right.
I don't think that political intervention should be multiplied in the political postings.
Right. Let me also include Faraz Saab. Faraz, can you hear me? Faraz, there is, also something that's extremely important, and I want to take everyone's input on this, about white elephants. And this has been something, these are those tough decisions that have been spoken about from time to time, but it's been difficult for any government to take them. And for this government to come out and say this, one has to give them this credit, that the PM said that those white elephants that have been draining the country, that have been draining the resources, that have been draining, the economy of the country, they have to be done away with. How do you look at this?
Mahrukh, about the PM speech there, I think it has been the same old speech that has been repeated by the PM in the last 2 years. The only thing that was good at the timing was PWD, Pakistan Works Department, that has been closed. It was the white elephant, yes. PIA is on the line to be privatized, though the intent from the international buyers hasn't been there. That's a bit worrying, but I think probably it will go down in August or September. That's what the date has been given by the finance minister. The speech with the PM, the only good thing that I see in it is that he's addressing the problem. That is, we have to close down the departments that are making losses. If you just see the top 3 loss-making companies that the government own, they add up to a loss of around 200 billion rupees Pakistani. So with them making losses over there, this has to be done. Someone had to put their foot down. The problem with Pakistan in last 2 decades had been the political interest from the people that had been elected by the people. For example, anyone who's in the parliament has their own interest. For let's say, PIA, for example, if we see, there have been numerous times that they wanted to privatize it. The PM, past historical PMs had, you pick Nawaz Sharif, you say Yusuf Raza Gilani, and there had been numerous PMs who wanted PIA to be privatized, but they couldn't because of the political interest that people had with that. So I see the only good thing in this budget, the PM speech, obviously, is that he is addressing this big issue that Pakistan economy is facing.
Okay, fair enough. Let me go to Muneeb with this. Muneeb, Faraz is saying that the only good thing about the speech was that he talked about white elephants. Would you agree with that? And the fact that, it is repetitive. The thing is that, the PM, what more could the Prime Minister of Pakistan say, except that, we're trying our best? That the UAE has pledged 10 billion for Pakistan, that China, of course, is also on board with regard to investment, that sacrifices have to be made by those classes in Pakistan who can make them in the interests of those that can't. That this is going to be one of those budgets that's going to be a little hard to swallow, but then it is for the longer run, for the benefit of the country. Do you think it's run of the mill? Muneeb?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, all right. So I do agree, and I do think that to a certain extent it is a run-of-the-mill speech, because every year we, depending on which government is in power, but we always listen to the Prime Minister or the person heading the government telling us that this is the tough road that has to be, or the tough journey that has to be undertaken in order for long-term relief. But unfortunately, 12 months down the line, we find ourselves either in the same or even worse conditions. So, I mean, the temptation to want to believe what Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif just said today in his speech, at least on my part, was very high. I really wanted to believe him, and I hope that he does deliver when he says that this would be the last time that Pakistan would be going to the IMF for a bailout. But we've missed lots of opportunities in the past. It does not mean that we get disappointed with regards to the future, but the fact that there's an ambitious plan to
But he
raise
also
tax revenue.
But
Yes.
Muneeb, he also said that as far as inflation is concerned, we are down from 38 to 12%. So in the sense of stabilizing the situation, he's not just making future promises, but he's also saying that look, we've done this and we've managed to do this. We've managed to save you from default, which is, by the way, no small feat. And other than that, the inflation has come down. So the road is there and we've started on it, but it's long and arduous.
I agree. I agree with what you've just said. And yes, there are certain statistics and numbers which are quite much by the Prime Minister's side. They do support what he says and they do substantiate what he's saying. So yes, inflation has gone down. Yes, he also made reference to, stock markets showing growth and a promising growth. And there is hope. But like I've been saying that, 13 trillion rupees tax revenue target is very ambitious, and there are certain areas. I mean, the People's Party had a lot of concerns about not being consulted on the PSDP. Now, this is something that the government will have to deliver on, that they take the allies on board, the same allies which, had they not supported the PMLN would not have been able to form government at the center. Likewise, concerns from the critics, which I've just mentioned, that electricity prices are going to rise by around 20%. And there are still a lot of indirect taxes that are going to fall upon, those on the lower income lines. I think that these are very valid concerns. Also, the fact that, there is no raise in real estate direct tax rate, which is the base for PMLN voters. All these concerns and all these criticisms, because I do believe these are constructive criticisms, they need to be addressed. But by and large, the the Prime Minister's speech may have seemed run of the mill to certain sections of the society. It was a decent enough speech, and I think that it projects a good way forward. And like I said, I would love to take him on his word that this would be the last time that we'd be going to IMF, and that we would now be able to stand on our own feet and bring more individuals from the upper echelons of the society into the tax net.
Let me come back to you on that. Wajih Saab, can you hear me? Wajih Saab?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you.
Wajih Saab, there is, of course, we talk about the fact that what the Prime Minister is promising, what he's saying again, and we would all, again, Muneeb is right, that want, of course, Pakistanis, each and every Pakistani does not want to go back to the IMF. Again, he's not saying it's going to be easy. He's not saying that, sacrifices are not going to be made. He's saying that it's going to be a long road, it's a difficult road, and that we are on it and we are with you on this, and we are making all the efforts to do this as far as overall the country is concerned. Do you think that this kind of politics, as far as the PPP is concerned, and in the kind of scenario that is, are you looking at certain taxes being done away with after this consultation?
Generally, as you know, every budget, whenever there are after the budget speech, there are generally there are some adjustments. Always, in previous budget, you've seen that many times. There are adjustments, and there will be probably adjustments there. But I don't think there would be something like a big change in the budget or any change in the budget's scheme, because generally the scheme is to increase the tax to GDP ratio and bring those sections of society into the tax nets who have not been paying the taxes and who have not been contributing to the national exchequer. So that part of the thing will not change much. These concerns were more on public sector development program. and somewhat on the privatization of PIA. Otherwise, there were not much objections from PPP. So if there are adjustments on PSDP, there may be more funds for Sindh, Balochistan, or the areas, other areas of PPP concern. Then the things will settle down. And I don't think that People's Party in this time of this time, it's going to or it would like to destabilize the government, because the biggest joining factor between PPP and PMLN right now is PTI, and they're probably their sort of agreement that they have to continue this government for the whole term, probably, to stabilize the economy and to sort of politically stabilize the country also. So I don't think that PPP will make that type of demands which the PMLN government or the Prime Minister is unable to fulfill. So in that regard, I think the adjustments, somewhat adjustments will be made by both the parties, and basic scheme of the budget will not be changed.
Fair enough. Let me go to Naveed. Naveed, the basic scheme of the budget, I think is one of those terms that Wajih Saab used, is largely, I think he's right, they want to bring that huge segment of society into the tax net that somehow evaded it. And that is something that's been, the question is, these things have always been on the agenda, but which government has been brave enough to do them? And this government's foray into trying to accomplish the, near impossible is what gives its credence.
Yes, it is a big task. And those who are not the part of that, tax net should be brought in the tax net. Everybody, should feel that burden which is on the government and the
on a small segment of society.
Yes, definitely. So, if small segment of society is bearing that burden, and those who are earning more and are not contributing to the tax, department, and they will have to bear that burden as well. So, the decision of the government is, very well, addressed. What should be done now? Number one, to strengthen the society or to give more boost to the common man, it is necessary to strengthen small farmer. One who is growing wheat or rice or sugar cane or the pulses, and is the producer of milk and ghee and oil or butter. Everything is produced from the farmers or from the agriculture sector. Government will have to strengthen that small farmer which is having 10 acres or 20 acres or even less than 25 acres of land, should be strengthened and should be given interest-free loans, or solarization should be provided to them. If the cost of the production in the fields is reduced, definitely the commodities grown in the fields will be not having that high rise. Inflation will not create inflation. So I think this is the time when government will should strengthen small farmers and should also strengthen small industry sector. Artisans or small industry should be strengthened at or cottage industry should be strengthened in the entire country, so that common man should have their earning at the basic level or at their doorstep.
But Naveed, we talk about strengthening, we talk about bringing the small farmer, bringing it to that level, empowering them. But the question is, let me go to Muneeb, the question is that these are measures that are going to take a lot more than just, I mean, these involve investment, they will involve a lot of, resources, which unfortunately we don't have at this time. So for the country to come to that kind of level, we're going to be needing help, we're going to be needing support. What is your take on this liaison with the UAE, also with China, and the effort there to bring investment? Because as far as the PMLN particularly is concerned, I think their last tenure of Nawaz Sharif Saab, I think he was known for this effort that was made during that tenure. And even when Shehbaz Sharif Saab was the chief minister in Punjab, when a big effort for investment was made all over under his leadership. So I think this is a continuation of that policy. And a lot of critics then said that perhaps if that had continued, correct me if I'm wrong, then perhaps the IMF begging bowl could have been done away with, at reasonably speaking.
Interestingly, I do think that things were shaping up in a good direction way back in 2016 and 2017, and I just think that all of that development was brought to an abrupt halt. And then we had a new government at the time in 2018, and unfortunately, it's been an unending, endless toxic cycle of going back to the IMF, being trapped in debt servicing, and actually taking on more debt to repay past debt. So yes, I think that the diplomacy skills of those at the helm of PMLN, I mean the Sharif brothers, Mia Nawaz Sharif and Mia Shehbaz Sharif, they have proven to be much more seasoned than the government that we had between 2018 to 2022. So I hope that the efforts with the UAE, with the financial community, with the international community, and I also hope that the efforts of Special Investment Facilitation Council, all of these bear fruit eventually. There is hope, and a lot also depends on political stability. But what we've seen is that, the PTI and SIC coalition, they have carried out, the opposition leader in the National Assembly, he's carried out a press conference just now, hasn't really pointed out what the problems of the budget are, but has criticized it for criticism's sake. And like I've been saying previously,
there's also lack of, they're talking about the fact that there's some documents that should have been provided. So there doesn't seem to be, in your opinion, a lot of meat to what he's saying. Isn't that true?
I'm sorry, your question, I could not hear it.
I'm saying that there doesn't seem to be a lot of, I mean, he talked about some documents that are missing. I'm going to include Faraz in this also. But, overall, there doesn't seem to be a lot of meat in what he's saying.
In what, who is saying?
Umar Ayub Saab, when you have just mentioned this press conference, the other opposition leaders also, when they spoke, there's generally...
Absolutely not. And one more thing, that I've been reading and listening to news that the PTI founder is now ready to talk with the government, but then he backtracks and then he says that no, I'm going to talk to the ones who wield actual power from behind the scenes. I don't know what he means by that. But this going back and forth is only resulting in creating political uncertainty. And I think that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif did mention this in his speech today, that those who do not come to the table, those who do not want to see political cohesion, national cohesion, those who attack upon state institutions as they did on 9th May, they are the ones that, we need to overcome. These are the challenges that we need to overcome in order to be able to realize the economic targets that have been set under this budget plan. So, fingers crossed, as I've said, very ambitious plans the government has, but I hope that no one plays spoil sport in this endeavor.
On that, I want to come back to you. Let me go to Faraz Saab. Faraz Saab, do you think, I mean, we have seen the reaction of the opposition to some extent. We saw the press also. Do you think they're going to be able to play ball? Because as the opposition, we saw the budget speech being made. There wasn't really much said. They were, on the merits of it. They had walked out. Now we've seen that, this speech is happening as far as talking to those who count, backtracking on that. What kind of a week or what kind of the next couple of months do you expect from this opposition?
Well, Mahrukh, unfortunately, if you see opposition, they're playing the same ball. They're just carrying on with the same narrative. And interestingly, the government also does not have anything new. They're playing with the same thing as well. The Pakistan was on default. We have done this. We've done that. The PM talked about inflation coming down. And you said about farmers, and one of the participants also mentioned about it. The government could not easily manage. We've got bumper wheat crop this time. The government could not manage or protect our own farmers from that. We imported $1 billion wheat, and the farmers, the small farmers who have their land and they've cultivated wheat for it, it's going to waste now. So it's basically a ball game that the government and the opposition is playing. Government plays the same narrative. Opposition, when they get their chance, they play with their own same narrative. There's nothing different in the budget or the speeches or anything. So don't expect anything change from the opposition, and you should expect the same thing from the government in next year. They have to think out of the box. So if the government wants opposition to change their ways, the government has to come up with new things, new ideas, and the government has to prove that they are in power. Unfortunately,
the opposition is not saying anything. They're not really saying that, change this or change that. They're not really coming up with anything constructive for the government to do. You're saying that, okay, the government is giving the same again, but the question is, wasn't inflation at 38%? Hasn't it come down to 13%? So those are also facts that the government, there has been a constructive, consolidated one-track effort for so many months, which has gone from the Prime Minister right down to the clerical level to do this. It's no small feat. And to say that, we can throw everyone into the same basket is, I think, a little unfair. No, Naveed sir?
Mahrukh, in fact, the Prime Minister has very clearly addressed the nation and has given his performance sheet. Opposition is in the field or in the assemblies for the sake of opposition. They don't have an alternative agenda or substitution of that which the Prime Minister has given. If they oppose, yes, they can oppose, but with that opposition, they will have to give that alternative agenda that this is the right thing which we have and this is the wrong thing which the Prime Minister or the finance minister gave.
Or they can come up with a shadow budget, or they can come up with some kind of a constructive criticism.
They don't have any solution of that which they are raising voice of. So we have seen in many assemblies same sort of hue and cry. It will shut down. It will be no more within a month or so. And again, the opposition should learn that lesson which opposition could not learn during
so many years.
For the last so many years. And when they were in the government, now they are in opposition. So neither they have learned any lesson from the government nor in the opposition. So if they want to be good political parties or political, they want to add any goodwill gesture and add anything to the nation, they will have to go for the constructive politics.
Why don't we see, we have not seen any kind of, Muneeb also can correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't seen any kind of shadow budget come from the opposition, considering the fact that, of course, they say that they are made, it is an opposition that is an amalgam of such learned minds and, of course, political history also, then they should have come up with some kind of a shadow budget to say that, look, we propose these instead of what you are saying. And we haven't seen that happen. And that tradition, I think, needs to be inculcated into Pakistani politics that unfortunately, hasn't been there. There's always been a lot of name calling that is unfortunately associated with this political party. And any political party, I think this is a good tradition that should come forward. If it's going to be, amalgam of educated minds, then we should have shadow budget, or we should have, alternate amendments to it.
cabinets and they have shadow ministers, and yes, those shadow budget policies. The press conference, which was held by PTI opposition leaders, by the, Sunni Ittihad Council leaders, whatever you want to call them, was just about repeating the same broken record again and again, that the courts are not free, that the others are thieves, they need to be in prison, but they're not in prison. They've made an anti-people budget. I mean, how exactly have they made an anti-people budget, and how could you have done things better had you been in their stead? These are the kinds of things that you want to listen to coming from the opposition. I'm listening to much more constructive criticism coming in from independent experts and analysts. Like just now, some while ago, I was reading, people complaining that the tax on stationery or textbooks or books generally has risen in a country which needs more literacy. So I think these are the kinds of criticisms that we're looking for. Discussing whether, retailers should be able to evade paying taxes by, saying that they don't have systems which enable card payments and to resort to cash payments. These challenges, how to overcome them, these are the areas which need to be explored. Otherwise, you are only adding to the problem. It's very easy to criticize those who are making policies. It is the job of the media and of the public to criticize the government, but also to help the government accomplish its aims, especially aims which are legitimate. And taxing those who do earn taxable incomes is very legitimate. Then you have to put in and you have to, give your input in terms of constructive criticism. I don't see that coming forward from the opposition, and then they expect us to sympathize with them.
Wajih Sahab, do you agree with what Muneeb is saying? I mean, there is really, we need that kind of constructive criticism. We also need, that kind of constructive input. I think any opposition, whether it's even the PPP, which is part of the government technically, they can also come up with those provisions or those amendments or those shadow provisions that they feel are going to be we can change in the budget, and the government can be open to that. Isn't that true?
Our society, negativity pays off. Negative, you say that, it's anti-people, it's, they have just broken the backs of the people, and this budget will just that sort of thing. These are customary things, and every opposition has been saying those types of things. But unfortunately, there is, we never have never in our history we had an opposition which gives positive ideas or which gives alternate ideas. Pakistan is had these problems, it's facing this problem of balance of payment issues. It's stagnating economy. So it was high inflation in 40s, as you mentioned, and now it has come down, but it was in 40s. And we have had those problems. Now, which of the political parties in the opposition, if this government party was in opposition also, when they gave that sort of proposals, alternate proposals to the government that, instead of getting money from this head, we should get money from that head. Nobody has that sort of alternate proposals. Political parties don't have economic teams, actually. They don't have people working on economy. They don't have people who have ideas on agriculture. They don't have actually their own type of think tanks where they can devise policies to carry them out when they are in the government. So these are the issues. They have to when whichever political party comes to power, it has to depend on the government infrastructure or the bureaucratic infrastructure which we have to make budget proposals and carry them on. So political parties mostly depend on their spokespersons who are mostly concerned with political statements, and they give that type of statements only. They don't have this type of intellectual base to give proposals or to give to make policies which can change the existing type of policies or to give alternatives So that's the issue with this opposition. This is the issue with it was the issue with the previous opposition. It was the issue with PPP. It was the issue with PMLN. It is with PTI and every political party. They don't have sort of infrastructures in their political parties where they can devise policies, or they can debate, or the whole debates about the studies and that sort of thing. That's the issue. And the only option available to them, and that's very free, is to call everything is reject everything without giving an alternative. So we, as a nation, and every political party has to become.
Wajih Saab, you're absolutely right. I think that you're absolutely right. But is it the inadequacy of having people who know these things, or is it just that they don't want to make this effort, and politics has really become about name calling and hooliganism, and just call it, and they believe that plays to their audience or the galleries, and that is what they want to do. Naveed Saab, is it that? Because I think, I don't think we have any shortage of learned minds, we don't have any shortage of expertise. So I think it has more to do with lack of effort, really.
Definitely, it is lack of effort. And in past we have experienced and we have seen that in PTI government, PTI government has been changing from time to time their finance ministers and the secretaries or the IGs, or they have been shuffling the bureaucracy and the ministers. But the incompetency or the incapacity could not be addressed. That incapacity of that party really have been creating problems for Pakistan. That is why during that continuous term of 4 years of PTI, they could not deliver at all. And when they are in opposition now, they are again not ready to play their part, which as a political, as an opposition party, they should have. Opposition parties are equally good or important for any country or any government as the governing parties are.
That I think is also the problem, that the role of the opposition has unfortunately never been realized by our opposition parties.
Definitely.
They don't realize how important and monumental it can be.
The opposition parties can bring the political.
It is not about bringing down the government. It is about constructive criticism that makes a government perform better.
Definitely.
And that is the difference. And
this is the main, this is the main objective of a political opposition.
And that doesn't happen. And that is, I think, something that perhaps our parliamentary democracy needs to be educated on. And perhaps, media can play a role, and we can all really, talk about this.
Definitely.
Because I think it's extremely important for any democracy. And opposition is, one of those pillars that can really make a difference.
Equally important.
Equally important, certainly. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Naveed Aman Saab, thank you for your time. Faraz Ali Khan, thank you for joining us. Muneeb Qadir, thank you for being with us today. Wajih Abbasi, thank you for joining us today. Overall, of course, we talked about the Prime Minister's speech. We talked about how he highlighted the achievements of the government with regard to saving the country from default, bringing down the inflation. He also, of course, highlighted the plight of Muslims in Gaza and Kashmir, which cannot be talked about enough. The brutality that is at play is something that we all live with every day and watch on our screens as women and children are butchered, and unfortunately that is something that is happening even as we speak. He talked about that. He also talked about those tough decisions that have been made and have to be made in the interest of the country. He also talked about white elephants and the fact that the government has to do away with them, and of course the role of the Special Facilitation Council and their invariable coming together of all stakeholders in trying to ensure that Pakistan remains on the path of recovery economically. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.